Peter, thanks so much for being here. I'm Adam. Nice to meet you.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
For those listening who don't know me, I'm a comedian. I'm also a member of the board of the Writers Guild of America, and I was on our negotiating committee for our last round of negotiations. So it's always really exciting for me to meet someone else who's deep in the union work, especially in a high profile way. I was hoping you could start by telling us, where things are at with the negotiations and what are the biggest issues that your members are facing.
Yeah, happy to do that. So, back on the 15th and 16th of February, our members voted on a tentative agreement that we had negotiated with Pro, and the members rejected that tentative agreement, 95.8% voting no. And a couple of days later, on the February 18th, the company locked our folks out.
And what is a lockout for those who don't know?
Well, a lockout is the opposite of a strike, which is where the employer is not letting us go to work. And that, when you think about in union and management relations, there's a couple of different ways things can go. A strike being, one economic weapon that the employees have, the workers have, whereas a lockout and other tools that the employer might have. And the employer has exercised that economic weapon on us. To put economic pressure on the workers and presumably to pressure them into taking a worse agreement.
Yeah, because they seem to feel, we have all the leverage, so we can just hire scab refs to do your job. We don't really need you, and therefore you should take a bad deal. Is that their strategy?
You would have to ask them, but that's how we're perceiving it. Yes.
Tell me, just as a baseline, what have referees in MLS been facing? Why? I mean, 95% of the referees rejecting the deal offered by the company means they must feel very strongly about it. What are the issues facing them?
Sure. And, there are several, but I want to hit on a couple of the main ones over here. The first one being wages that aren't keeping up with the league's growth. That's probably the biggest one. Right. So MLS has had some really good and excellent and exciting growth over the past 5 years that our last contract was in place, even before that. And it's exciting. Don't get me wrong. This is fantastic for everyone in the league, this type of growth.
Yeah.
But our people are not keeping up in their wages. Our people are not keeping up with their benefits. And our members are really falling behind on the time commitment relative to their wages. And we can't see that happen. We're trying to bargain for a deal that helps on those things.
How much are referees making right now, or under the previous deal?
So we have four classifications of referees. Right, we have our center referees who are operating in the field of play in the center, and the person you might see the most of. These folks make between probably about $95,000 on the base. Plus about 1,300 per match that they referee. And, that's a okay wage for the amount of time that they do. But once again, it's not keeping up with the growth of what's happening.
Yeah.
That was a fair wage 5 years ago when that was negotiated, or that's what the agreement had.
But now there's been this massive Apple TV deal. Everyone's being broadcast across the country. There's all the stadiums are full, expansion teams everywhere. It's like the league is growing massively.
And right. And it's not just across the world. The Apple TV deal is an international TV deal.
Yeah.
And, but these things, right. And the struggle that our folks face and our members face is that the league is telling us, or Pro is telling us, whoever, that, this is the agreement and this is kind of the end of the road for them on negotiating. But at the same time, when you walk into some of these stadiums, you walk into the new stadiums, you walk into places that have just full crowds, and we know it's different from 5 years ago. Yeah. You're asking people to not believe their senses, not believe what their eyes are telling them. And that's a really hard thing for our membership to accept. So
Yeah, I'm an LAFC fan. That's why I'm here doing this podcast and why I love this podcast. But you go to these games, they seem like the biggest sporting event in Los Angeles. They seem as big and profitable as your average Lakers game in terms of the fan energy, the amount of money being spent, etc. And this is the top flight, league in America, and 100 grand or so for the top official sounds okay, but it obviously hasn't grown in that way. I'm sure if you compare to folks who are refereeing other sports, what are people making on the low end?
the lowest person makes 20,000 for a 30-game season, and
Wow.
that's one of the disparities that we have. UPS drivers had their B scale that they were trying to get out of their book. We're trying to do the similar thing, which is to, certainly to raise everyone up, but also to take particular care of our lower end wage officials, who have different duties. Those are the replay officials, of course, but the expertise that they bring and the negativity that they get if they make a mistake needs to be balanced, and
Yeah.
that's what we're bargaining for. I've got to go on though to say that there are some officials who are operating on the field of play who don't have health insurance offered by the company,
Really?
and they, for example, right now they can buy in to the company health plan, but at 100% of the premium, and that
Wow.
doesn't make sense so much. Um, and we're looking to figure out new ways to solve this, right? We really are. And what we had on the table before with the company, the membership seemed to think that that wasn't good enough, and they resoundingly said so. And now we're going to rejoin the company at the table on the 28th of February.
So, let's talk about the negativity a little bit, because obviously, in any sporting event, the referee or the umpire in baseball is the fan's favorite person to hate and to feel negatively towards. It's a very outside of perhaps the other team. It's a natural position to receive fan ire, and so you've seen. I think kind of shamefully, some MLS fans say, "Oh, the refs suck anyway, so who cares?" Right? Which I think is a pretty ignorant point of view. But I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the importance of these referees to the game, and to what fans love so much about it.
So yeah, and I'm glad you asked that, because that's really the thrust of where we're coming from, which is we have a staff of highly trained, extremely motivated 100 group of officials, right? And these people, they study the rules, they study game tape going into their game, they prepare, and they get ready for whatever might come out on the field of play that day. And refereeing in MLS is a really unique league. And some of the things that make MLS really cool are that you've got players from all over the world.
Yeah.
That thing is a melting pot on the field of play. And that makes it very exciting in a lot of ways, but it also means you have to prepare in a lot of different ways that are different. And the things that the fans might notice about, or I'm sorry, the things the fans might not notice that we do is the way we get the ball back in play faster, the way that we avoid confrontations when it's necessary to avoid a confrontation and get the ball back in play faster, the way we manage the players so that they don't disagree with one another, and the way that we allow some contact to let go and let the play continue, as opposed to whistling all the time. And these are the kind of soft skills and the kind of things that experience that we've been trained to do and that we do to make these matches as enjoyable as possible.
Yeah. And it really strikes me that good refereeing, or refereeing at all, is such an essential part of the game. You notice so immediately when the refereeing is not up to snuff, and it's for a league that is trying to increase its stature in the world compared to all the other leagues that exist, for them to decide to voluntarily reduce the standard of refereeing by locking you out and bringing on less experienced, less highly trained referees who are willing to work as scabs, quite frankly, in order to save a couple bucks to reduce the quality of play by reducing the quality of refereeing. That's shocking to me. And one of the things that I love about when I first went to LAFC games, I felt, my God, this is such a good sports product. I'm having such a good time in the stadium. It's so well built. The uniforms look great. The music they play is awesome. The culture is good. They did such a good job of creating a fun experience. And this is such a shocking opposite move from the league to say, you know what, let's make the league worse just to save a couple bucks. That's what I expect out of baseball, quite frankly. I haven't expected that quite so much out of MLS. I'm curious what your feeling about it is, if you have that same level of shock that they'd cut off their nose to spite their face.
Well, we unfortunately that's what we felt in 2014 when this happened as well. And we perceive it very much the same way that you do. And the company might think our proposals are unreasonable, that they grow too fast over time, and these different kinds of points. But when you look at the growth of the league, that we very much disagree, that our proposals are eminently reasonable and keep up with the growth of what's going on in a fixed way, right? It's not a runaway train, but rather one that, grows in a measured way. So we're disappointed, of course. We're very disappointed. It's hard to see the work that you do and the work that you love being done by someone else.
Yeah.
Something I experienced in 2014, and I know what my membership and my colleagues are feeling today is really terrible that it's come to this.
And what are your proposals? You say you have, they're reasonable. You have folks working without health insurance or without health insurance from the company. So what are you actually asking for in this contract?
Sure. So, I think a couple of the key points over there is that we're looking to improve the amount, or let me put it this way, the percentage of money that our folks earn that's guaranteed as opposed to variable. And by that, I mean, if folks are earning a fee for every game that they play or every game that they referee, if you get hurt, that income isn't coming anymore.
Right.
And in that way, it's an injury protection, right? And there's other protections built into it too. But interestingly enough, when you think about the players' negotiations from the last two times around, this was a key issue of the players' negotiations, right?
Right.
Then if you think, well, we have travel proposals that we need to look at over here so that the officials have what we view as the right amount of flexibility in how they travel. Because if you think about it, every weekend or every match day in MLS, there are about 80 officials crossing the United States and Canada, going everywhere you might not even think of, right? And we have, if you think about it, we have folks going all the way from Quebec City to Los Angeles, Miami to Vancouver, every weekend. And, the flexibility in the way they travel is critical, right? The way that they recover after matches by flying on a proper airline seat when they recover after matches. Because remember, they might have just run 6, 7, 8 miles.
Right.
In Kansas City in 110-degree weather.
Right.
Flying properly home is where the recovery begins. And those different things. And, we have different ideas about how to handle it. None of them being palatable to the company yet.
And so this is just travel, making sure that the travel is not onerous and that they're able to recover on travel. This is a very basic thing that sports unions, players unions ask for. I remember the WNBA this was a big sticking point in their players association in their last negotiation, because if you imagine you're playing a game for hours on end, and then you've got a 3 connection flight or something like that really is making it hard for you to do your job. Talk a little bit more about the physical toll it takes on the referees, because these folks, and you've refereed yourself for many years, you're running far more than probably any other referee working in sports. What are the kind of injuries that folks doing this job can suffer?
Sure. There are too many of them to really get into, but so let's just take the referees, for example. In the center of the field of play, might be doing 6, 7, 8 miles of running, forwards, backwards, sideways, some walking, and some real sprinting, 30, 35 times a season. And right, folks have injuries of runners, right? They have injuries of sprinters, hip injuries, back injuries. Thankfully, we've never had, something so severe as an Achilles injury recently, but it happens.
Yeah.
The assistant referees on the side are doing a lot of lateral movement. right? Similar to the way hockey linesmen operate. And hip injuries are common with those folks. And don't get me wrong, when workers' comp will cover these people if they're injured in the course of their duties, right? But for preventive care is what we're talking about. For
Mm-hmm.
other types of care that's not related to the field of play is very concerning over there. But I remember my one of my seasons that I was in, I think maybe 10 years ago, let's say, where I had worked 42 matches that season. And this is in line with what the players are doing now. Some of the players are even doing more matches. And it's a big thing on your body over the course of that season. And then
Yeah.
you get maybe 6 weeks of rest, and then you do it all over again. So it's not just the length of the season, number of matches, but also the duration of the off season that makes this a year-round hard job to do.
Yeah.
Uh, and
Add to that the travel, which I know in my job as a stand-up comedian, that amount of travel is itself extremely physically taxing. And you're away from home for so long. It's a difficult way to live. I can't imagine if I was flying, to a different city every weekend as I currently do, and also running that many miles and doing that amount of a physical activity, getting immediately on a plane again, going somewhere else. You're describing a really grueling job that people should be paid adequately for and have the health protections, the basic health protections that you're talking about.
yeah, that's the way we see it, certainly. And look, the players, to their credit, had negotiated improved travel benefits in their last contract, and then over time, and after the pandemic was winding down over there, is that the players went on charter aircraft exclusively. We're not asking our people to fly on private jets. We're not asking for first class on every single ticket. What we are asking for is that our growth in the way we travel keeps up with the players' growth in the way they travel. They can
Yes.
do more matches. The quality of play that the players have when they fly on a chartered plane is much better than what they fly on commercial, because they did used to fly commercial until not too long ago.
Wow.
And that's the type of growth that we're looking to keep up with. And you mentioned the WNBA earlier. They're doing the same exercise with their players about which flights would go for charter and which ones not. And every growing league has these considerations. We just ask to keep up with the growth.
Yeah. And it strikes me that you're asking for very similar things to what, and just to use my own experience, Hollywood writers and actors were asking for, the folks doing the middle class job that, the industry needs to function. It's basic quality of life stuff. It's, I need to be paid for my work. I need to be working in conditions that aren't excessively onerous. I need to be able to make health insurance. It's those basics that the industry needs. And you're saying, hey, help us help you by giving us the basic needs we need to make this a great league.
That's the goal. That's the goal. There have been tremendous strides in professional refereeing over the last 10, 15 years. I mean, there really have been, right? When I came in the league in 07, there were 4 full-time officials. Now there are about 30 and growing. And everybody else is working on a part-time basis, sure. Some folks, if you live in a place where it's not too expensive to live, maybe you can be in that middle tier, but that's your only job is refereeing. And that's new ground that we haven't been on before. But once again, we view that it should be more people.
Yeah.
Right. And that you don't have to balance your day job for some of our folks, your accounting job, your work as a chemist or something like that. Or we have lots of school teachers too. Balancing that against refereeing becomes easier if you have a better wage, more flexibility.
Yeah. And so for fans who are watching, or fans who are listening to this or paying attention to this at all, they might consider that if you want better refereeing, a good way to get it would be to make sure that the people doing the refereeing aren't having to substitute teach or drive Uber or work as a chemist or whatever it is in between matches. If they can do it full time, then that increases the level of professionalism and it makes the league better. So the fans should really have your backs. I just like to ask the folks who we are currently seeing on the field. I think it's been very apparent to anybody watching the opening weekend that, the standard has gone down. If you could talk a little bit about what the league loses by locking out, your professional workforce in favor of a scab workforce.
Well, yeah, and I really don't want to comment on the quality of the refereeing on the last couple of days, because our referees too don't like to be criticized in that type of way, and I
Sure.
wouldn't do it here. That's certainly not my place. But I would say is, when the stats come out for the amount of time ball in play,
Mm.
compare that to opening weekend of last season. When the stats come out on the number of fouls, on some of the other metrics that you might be able to easily look at, a comparison is certainly necessary. And also the enjoyment of the matches. We, as a staff, we have a safety net of video review. It's true. It's an awesome safety net, video review. We don't use it too often. Maybe once every 2 matches or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Review where a decision has changed. And you can look up the metrics from this past weekend and see where that's going. But once again, time the ball is in play is a big story, and we do it the best out of anybody in North America. We do that job the best. And that's what makes the game exciting, is when the ball is in play and the players can show what they've got.
I didn't even realize that was something that you were managing, that, in addition to, the cards and the fouls and all of that you are trying to keep the pace of the game enjoyable. That's a really important job.
It's what, look, when I started to referee, a very wise referee once told me, he said, if the ball is in play, you're safe. When the ball is out of play, the people will argue, the people will disagree, the people will push one another. So get the ball back in play.
Yeah.
And whenever that tool is available to our members when they're refereeing, that's what they do. Sometimes you've got to take care of business right now. We get it. But otherwise, if you can get that ball back in play, get that ball back in play. And that's what the fans want to see, is the ball in play.
Yeah. And so for all the fans who want to see that and want to support you, what are you asking of them? I haven't seen you do a call for a fan boycott or anything like that, but how can folks show their support?
Well, so a lot of fans have, right? For example, the team in Austin, they put together a very nice display over the weekend with some different signs that they had really supported us in a very kind way, and we really appreciate that. Look, we want the fans to enjoy the matches. That is the number one thing over here, and please enjoy the matches and enjoy the spectacle of the matches as best you can. But during the week, please support us with calling who you can call, supporting us on social media if that's possible, right? Perhaps calling your season ticket rep holder and saying how you feel about the situation. It's an interesting thing to do, right? Or just explain to people you might meet, while you're out having coffee or whatever, about what's going on, and similar to what was happening with the writers and the screen actors, is that it's a momentum that's gained by the workers that really can help these things to resolve.
That's awesome. And, I'm going to be honest. My favorite thing about MLS, or one of my favorite things, is I love how much power fans have in this league, that the fans are organized into the supporters groups, and that when the fans are displeased about something, there have been cases where they've forced the league to make changes because, if you don't have those supporters groups playing the drums and chanting, it is a different product on the field. I think that's so cool. And it's the only sport I can think of in America or in North America where the fans have that kind of structural power. And so that means that fans, showing up to support you guys can make a real difference. And I really appreciate you saying about emailing your season ticket representative. I'm a season ticket holder at LAFC, and I'm going to leave this conversation and do that right now and just politely say, hey, I just want to let you know, I'm really disappointed by the stance the league is taking here, and it's making me reconsider my membership going forward unless we see a quick resolution in support of the referees. So
Yeah.
it was something like that. Would that be helpful?
Well, look, we're not looking for anyone to cancel their membership.
But I can scare them a little bit. I can scare them just a little bit.
No, really. We want the fans to enjoy the matches and continue going to the matches. But when you talk to the people at the clubs, right, you can explain how you feel about the dispute.
Yes.
And feel how you think it should be resolved. whichever way you think it should be resolved. But that type of communication and that type of people talking about the issues is what we really want, which is to say that the game has the best quality when the best officials are out there. And that's what we're asking for people to discuss.
Thank you so much for that. I'm sure so many of the people listening are going to do exactly that. And I won't keep you because I know you have to prepare to get back into negotiations. And I just want to let you know, all of us here, at least everyone on Happy Foot, Sad Foot, and I'm sure almost all the people listening are completely behind you guys and rooting for you to get the kind of result that your members deserve so that the game can be great.
Well, thank you so much. It was great to be here.